Welcome back to the shop. Today's project is going to be a baking board. We're going to use maple and walnut. I went ahead and started milling up some of the materials. Here I'm at the table saw ready to rip the two outside boards. Whenever possible, use the guards and follow the instruction that come with the tools and products that you use. So I'm all set up to rip the walnut accent strip that goes in the middle. And while I got the saw still set up in a ripping mode, I'll rip the two breadboard ends. So now you can see what the main field's going to look like. We'll go ahead, glue the field together. We'll use a framing square to check for flatness of the panel. We'll let it sit in the clamps for 45 minutes, scrape off the excess glue. While that's sitting in the clamps drying, I can go ahead and I can start working on our breadboard end returns. We've got mortises to cut in these, and I'll show you how we do that. So what we have here are our breadboard returns. I've got 1, 2, 3 deep mortises. That'll be 3/4 of an inch deep, and then we've got 2 sections here that'll be 1/4 inch deep. The reason we're not making one full, wide, long tenon is that it's going to keep the piece stronger. And I'll show you how we'll cut those. To cut the mortises, we're here at the router table. What I did was I set up a 1/4 inch bit and I got it centered on a piece of scrap stock that's the same thickness as our breadboard returns. And I went ahead and I transferred the beginning and the trailing edges of the bit onto this piece of masking tape. That piece of masking tape is going to tell me where I need to start my groove and where I need to stop. In addition, I've also got 2 stop blocks to control the length. The first 2 passes will create the full length groove for all the tenons, and then I'll work on cutting these little short, deeper tenons. So let's go ahead, get things powered up, and get her done. So here are the 2 pieces with all of our mortises cut. As you can see, we've got both deep and shallow mortises. So next up are to cut the tenons, and to do that we'll go to the table saw. So here at the table saw we'll start forming the tenons on the end of the panel. I've got stacked dado head set up, an auxiliary fence, and what we'll do is we'll start with the cutter low. We'll make a pass on each side and continue to raise the cutter up till the tongue just fits into the groove. That's all. We've made a few changes. We've added in the miter gauge, and we've also added in a high auxiliary fence to support the panel. The setup on the saw's changed once again. I still got the miter gauge in play, but I've added a stop block. The stop block is going to let me control the tenons. We're going to cut the waste out in between the 3 tenons. And I'm all set up to cut the outside edges first. So now you can see with the 3 tenons that when we go to put the other breadboard end on, that'll fit in. I've already tested it to make sure the joints will close up, and they will. So we're ready for glue up. I'm only going to put glue on the center tenons. I'm going to let the outside ones float to allow for expansion and contraction. I'll let it sit in the clamps for a couple hours. Give it a final sanding, and then we'll round over all the edges with a 1/4 inch round over bend and router, and then we can finally do a finish. So here it is in the clamps. We'll let it sit in the clamps for a couple hours. Like I said before, we'll do the final sanding, trim up the ends, and round over the edges. One thing, if you're going to make this at home, extend these dog ears out about 1 inch on each end. And you can knock the pieces off if you have to. But next step after all that's the finish. So after I routed all the edges, sanded the board, I went ahead and I put on my favorite finish for this little baking / cutting board. It's just some butcher block oil. The main thing to remember with any sort of food products is we want a finish that's food safe. So I hope you guys enjoyed this project. I hope you rate, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the shop next time.